The chamber was enormous, built to house representatives from 47 different alien species. Captain Li Haiyan stood beside Ambassador Kang Do-yeon, trying not to show his nervousness. Behind them, Dr. Park Min-ji clutched a datapad containing humanity's entire petition for membership in the Galactic Council. This was the moment Earth had been preparing for since making first contact 3 years ago. The Galactic Council had governed known space for over 10,000 years. They maintained peace, facilitated trade between worlds, and shared technology among member species. Joining the Council meant humanity would finally take its place among the stars as equals. It meant access to knowledge that could cure every disease, solve every energy crisis, and open doorways to distant galaxies. Arbiter Velmara sat at the center of the High Council platform. She was TerraLorn, a species that had been spacefaring for 8,000 years. Her skin shimmered like polished silver, and her 4 eyes regarded the human delegation with an expression that Haiyan could not read. Around her sat the other council members, beings of every imaginable shape and size. Some were humanoid. Others were nothing like anything from Earth. Ambassador Kang Do-yeon of Earth, Velmara's voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into Korean by the neural implant every human diplomat wore. You have petitioned this council for full membership. We have reviewed your species' history, your technological achievements, and your cultural development. The council has reached a decision. Kang stepped forward, his posture straight, despite the weight of representing 8 billion people. The people of Earth await your judgment with hope and respect. Valera's expression shifted slightly. It might have been pity. The Galactic Council acknowledges that humanity has achieved faster than light travel. You have unified your world under a single government. You have eliminated several diseases and made progress in sustainable energy. These are noteworthy accomplishments for a young species. Min-ji squeezed her datapad tighter. The word, "but," was coming. Everyone in the room could feel it. However, Velmara continued, the Council cannot grant humanity membership at this time. Your species has been evaluated as too volatile, too aggressive, and too unpredictable for integration into galactic society. The words hit like a physical blow. Haiyan watched as Kang's face remained carefully neutral, but the ambassador's hands trembled slightly at his sides. We do not understand, Kang said carefully. Humanity has been at peace for 40 years. We have shown nothing but respect and cooperation since first contact. A different council member spoke, a being that resembled a floating jellyfish. Your history speaks differently, Ambassador. In the past 3 centuries alone, your species engaged in 2 global wars that killed hundreds of millions. You developed weapons capable of destroying your entire planet. You brought species after species to extinction through negligence. You war among yourselves over resources, beliefs, and territories. That is our past, Min-ji suddenly spoke up, stepping forward despite protocol. We learned from those mistakes. We grew. We changed. Is that not what matters? Velmara's 4 eyes focused on Min-ji. Dr. Park Min-ji, your passion demonstrates exactly what concerns this council. Humans are driven by emotion rather than logic. You make decisions based on feelings rather than careful calculation. This makes your species dangerous. Dangerous? Haiyan could not stay silent anymore. We have done nothing to threaten anyone here. Not yet, another council member said, this one a reptilian species with scales like armor. But your expansion rate is unprecedented. In merely 200 years, you went from first flight to faster-than-light travel. You multiply rapidly. You consume resources at alarming rates. You adapt and change faster than any species we have encountered. If we allow you to spread across the galaxy, you will upset the careful balance we have maintained for millennia. Kang raised his hand, trying to regain control of the situation. If you have concerns, we will address them. We can limit our expansion. We can submit to monitoring. Whatever the Council requires, Earth will comply. That will not be necessary, Galmara said, and her tone became formal, final. The Galactic Council has designated the Sol system and all space within 50 light years as a quarantine zone. Humanity is forbidden from expanding beyond this boundary. Any human vessel found outside the designated area will be destroyed without warning. This is not negotiable. The chamber fell silent. Hyen felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath his feet. Not just rejected, but imprisoned. Caged like dangerous animals. You cannot do this. Minji's voice shook with barely controlled anger. We are a sapient species. We have rights. You have the right to exist within your designated zone, Galmara replied. Be grateful the Council has chosen containment rather than other options. The implication was clear. Other options meant extermination. Kong's careful composure finally cracked. Our people dreamed of the stars. Children across Earth grew up believing they would walk on distant worlds, meet alien friends, explore the cosmos. You are crushing that dream, killing that hope. Hope is an emotion, Ambassador. It is part of what makes your species unsuitable. Velmara stood, signaling the end of the session. This Council's decision is final. You have 1 Earth month to recall any human vessels beyond the quarantine line. After that, our automated defense platforms will enforce the boundary. This session is concluded. As guards alien beings in armor that seemed to shift and flow moved to escort the human delegation out, Hyen noticed something. Many of the Council members would not meet their eyes. Some looked uncomfortable. A few, particularly representatives from smaller, less influential species, appeared almost sympathetic, but one group of Council members, the military representatives, watched the humans with unmistakable fear. Not contempt, not pity, fear. That realization struck Hyen harder than the rejection itself. The Council was not just dismissing humanity. They were afraid of what humans might become. Walking back to their ship through the Council station's corridors, none of the 3 humans spoke. Other aliens stepped aside as they passed, some with curiosity, others with that same uncomfortable fear Hyen had noticed in the chamber. Finally, aboard the diplomatic vessel Prometheus, Kong collapsed into his chair. I failed. I failed everyone. No, Hyen said firmly. They made their decision before we even arrived. Nothing you could have said would have changed it. Minji stared out the viewport at the massive Council station. They think they can keep us in a cage. They think we will just accept this. What choice do we have? Kong asked bitterly. They have thousands of ships, technology millennia ahead of ours. If we resist, they will destroy us. Maybe, Hyen said quietly. Or maybe they are not as strong as they pretend. Did you see how they looked at us? They are terrified of humanity. Why would they fear a species they could easily crush? The ship detached from the station and began its long journey back to Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Council returned to governing the galaxy they had controlled for 10,000 years. They believed they had solved the human problem with a simple quarantine. They would learn how wrong they were. President Choi Era stood before the cameras, her face calm despite the chaos erupting across Earth. Behind her, through the windows of the Unity Hall, she could see protests filling the streets of Geneva. Some people carried signs demanding submission to the Council's quarantine. Others screamed for defiance. The world was tearing itself apart over a decision made by aliens light years away. Citizens of Earth, she began, her voice steady. 3 days ago, our diplomatic delegation returned with news that the Galactic Council has rejected our petition for membership. More than that, they have imprisoned us within our own solar system, threatening to destroy any ship that ventures beyond their arbitrary boundary. She paused, letting the words sink in. Every person on Earth was watching. Every nation, every city, every home. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. The Council believes we are too dangerous, too unpredictable, too emotional to join galactic civilization. They fear what we might become. And perhaps they are right to fear us, because I stand before you today to announce that humanity will not accept this cage. If we cannot join their community as equals, then we will build our own path among the stars. Admiral Kim Jun-ho watched the speech from the military command center beneath. Saul. He had argued against the diplomatic mission from the start. Never trust anyone who holds all the power, he had warned. Now his pessimism had been proven correct. Admiral, one of his officers approached. We are receiving reports of Council automated platforms establishing positions along the quarantine boundary. They are not hiding their presence. They want us to see them. A show of force, Jin-ho muttered. They want us to know the cage is real. He turned to his staff. Begin Operation Phoenix. Every resource, every scientist, every engineer. President Choi wants independence. We will give it to her. Across Earth, the Phoenix Protocol activated. It was the most ambitious mobilization in human history. Every space-capable nation contributed. Factories that once built consumer goods retooled for ship construction. Universities redirected their research toward faster-than-light technology, weapons systems, and self-sustaining colony ships. Earth's entire economy shifted toward a single goal: freedom. Engineer Yoon Taemin stood in a laboratory in Bizon, staring at holographic equations that filled the air around him. He was 32 years old and had devoted his life to studying alien technology salvaged from the few Council species willing to trade with humanity before the rejection. Now that knowledge would be put to use. The Council's hyperlane drives are efficient, he explained to his team, but they depend on using established routes through space. Natural corridors where faster-than-light travel is stable. That is why they can control who goes where. They own the roads. A younger engineer named Hana frowned. So we need to build our own roads? No, Tiemann smiled. We need to not use roads at all. Quantum displacement theory suggests we can fold space itself, creating temporary shortcuts anywhere we want. The calculations are massive, the power requirements are enormous, but we are not bound by Council regulations. We can build dangerous experimental drives that they would never approve. You are talking about technology that could tear a ship apart if it malfunctions, Hana pointed out. Yes, Tiemann agreed. But it would be our technology, not borrowed, not given as a gift by some superior species. Ours. 3 months after the rejection, the first test of a human quantum displacement drive ended in disaster. The test ship vanished and never reappeared. 14 crew members lost. Earth mourned, but the program continued. The second test, 6 months later, succeeded. A small craft jumped 50 light years in an instant, bypassing the Council's quarantine line completely, then returned before automated defenses could react. Humanity had just developed technology the Council did not possess. Captain Lee Hyen, now commanding a reconnaissance program, piloted a stealth ship through the darkness beyond the quarantine zone. His mission was simple: map the galaxy, avoid detection, and find anyone who might be willing to talk to humanity. The ship was tiny, built for one person, and equipped with every stealth system human engineers could design. It moved slowly, using conventional engines to avoid the energy signature of a displacement jump. Weeks passed in isolation before Hyen detected anything interesting. A trading station, small and clearly not Council-operated, orbited a barren moon. Hyen observed it for 3 days before making contact. Unidentified vessel. This is the Karathi Trading Post Haven. A voice came through his communication system. State your business or depart. This is Captain Lee Hyan of Earth. I request permission to dock and speak with your administrator. A long pause. Earth? The quarantined species? You are far from home, human. Yes, Hyan admitted. I am looking for friends. Another pause, then. Docket Bay 7. Come alone and unarmed. The Korathi are merchants, not warriors, but we are not fools either. The Korathi resembled four-armed bears, covered in thick fur ranging from white to deep brown. Their administrator, an elderly male named Tokvin, studied Hyan with curiosity. We heard about your species, Tokvin said, his voice rumbling. The council rejected you, imprisoned you. Yet here you are, somehow outside their cage. We developed new technology, Hyan explained. We refused to accept the council's judgment. Tokvin's fur rippled, which Hyan's cultural database indicated was amusement. The council rejected my species 800 years ago. We were too peaceful, they said. We refused to maintain military forces. They claimed we would be a burden on their collective defense. So we exist in the margins, trading where we can, ignored by the great powers. Then you understand, Hyan said. We are not looking for charity or pity. We want trade, exchange of knowledge, mutual benefit. The council forbids trade with quarantined species. Are you part of the council? Tokvin's fur rippled again. No, we are not. And the Korathi have always believed that the council does not own the galaxy, no matter what they claim. He extended one of his four hands. Let us discuss trade, Captain Lee Hyan of Earth. I believe this is the beginning of a profitable friendship. Dr. Park Minji, working from a diplomatic office on Luna, coordinated contact with 17 different non-council species over the next 2 years. The galaxy, it turned out, was full of civilizations that existed outside council authority. Some were peaceful traders, like the Korathi. Others were warrior cultures that rejected the council's rigid hierarchy. A few were simply too remote to care about galactic politics. What they all had in common was this: they were interested in humanity. A species crazy enough to defy the council was either stupid or dangerous, and either way, worth paying attention to. 5 years after the rejection, Admiral Junho stood on the bridge of humanity's first true warship, the Soul. It did not look like council vessels, which were elegant and sleek. The Soul was angular, armored, and covered in weapons that human engineers had designed without any concern for council regulations or safety standards. All systems operational, the weapons officer reported. Quantum displacement drive ready. Point defense grids active. Missile batteries loaded. Junho smiled. Take us to the quarantine line. I want the council to see what humans build when we are not asking for permission. The Soul appeared at the edge of the quarantine zone, its weapons powered down but clearly visible. Council platforms detected it immediately, but the ship did not cross the boundary. It simply hung there, a message. We are not afraid of you anymore. President Choi Era received the report in her office. 5 years of work. 5 years of sacrifice. Earth's economy had suffered. People had made do with less. Researchers had worked themselves to exhaustion. But humanity was no longer helpless. Madam President, her military advisor, entered. We have confirmed contacts with 23 non-council species. Trade agreements are in place. Our technology base has expanded dramatically. The quantum displacement drive is now in its 7th generation and completely reliable. We have constructed 47 warships and have another 100 in production. And the council? Choi asked. They are watching, probably trying to understand how we advanced so quickly. Their intelligence surely knows about our non-council contacts. Choi turned to look at Earth through her window. Then they know we are not alone anymore. Good, let them worry. But worry would soon turn to fear. And fear would drive the council to make a terrible decision. Captain Shin Ji-woo hated deep space reconnaissance missions. 4 months alone in a ship barely larger than a closet. Eating recycled food and breathing recycled air. Watching sensors track the movements of council vessels that would kill her without hesitation if they detected her presence. But someone had to do it. And Ji-woo was the best stealth pilot in the human fleet. Her ship, the Shadow Step, drifted silently near a council military installation in the Arcturus sector, 300 light-years from Earth. The installation was not on any official council charts that humans had obtained through their non-council contacts. It was hidden, secret, and very heavily guarded, which meant it was important. Ji-woo had been observing for 6 weeks, mapping patrol patterns, recording communications traffic, analyzing energy signatures. The installation was massive, built into an asteroid field where it would be difficult to detect. Thousands of council personnel worked there. Whatever they were building, it required enormous resources. Then, on her 43rd day of observation, a transport ship arrived carrying materials that made Ji-woo's blood run cold. Her sensors identified components for antimatter weapons. Not the small tactical warheads used in ship-to-ship combat, but strategic devices. Planet killers. She recorded everything, her hands shaking slightly as she operated the controls. The transport offloaded enough antimatter to destroy a dozen worlds. More transports arrived over the following days. The Council was not building one weapon. They were building an arsenal. Why would they need so many? Ji-woo whispered to herself in the empty ship. The Council maintained peace through overwhelming force, but they had never needed to actually destroy planets. Their fleet was enough to keep everyone in line. Then she intercepted a communication that answered her question. It was encrypted, but human cryptographers had gotten very good at breaking Council codes over the past 12 years. The message was from Council Security Director Melther to the installation commander. Project cleansing is approved. Target designation, Sol System. Estimated time to operational status, 8 months. Maintain absolute secrecy. The younger species must not learn of this until it is too late for them to respond. Ji-woo did not remember activating her quantum displacement drive. Terror had taken over her conscious mind. One moment she was staring at the message in horror. The next she was in Earth orbit. Her ship screening proximity alarms as defense platforms locked on to her unexpected appearance. This is Captain Shin Ji-woo. Authorization code Delta 97 Alpha, she transmitted frantically. Emergency intelligence for Admiral Kim Jun-ho. Priority absolute. Admiral Jun-ho studied the recordings in silence. Around him, his command staff waited, their faces growing progressively more pale as they processed what they were seeing. "They are going to exterminate us," Captain Baek Min-soo finally said. "The Council has decided we are too dangerous to contain, so they will simply eliminate the problem. Can we defend against this?" Jun-ho asked his weapons specialists. The senior specialist, an engineer named Park Syan, shook her head. "Antimatter weapons of this scale? If they launch enough of them simultaneously, our defenses would be overwhelmed. Even if we destroyed 90% of the missiles, the remaining 10% would be enough to sterilize Earth and every human colony." Jun-ho turned to his intelligence officer. "How long do we have?" Captain Shin's intelligence indicates 8 months until operational status. Add travel time from Arcturus to Sol System. Call it 9 months total. Maybe 10 if we are lucky. Not enough time to evacuate 8 billion people, Min-soo observed quietly. Even if we had somewhere to evacuate them to. Jun-ho stood, his decision made. "Get me President Choi and activate the War Council. We are out of time." President Choi Era listened to the intelligence report, her face betraying no emotion until Jun-ho finished. Then she stood and walked to her window, staring out at the city below. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that their entire species faced extinction. "If we reveal that we know about their plan," she said slowly, "it confirms we have spies beyond the quarantine zone. That gives them justification for immediate action." "Yes," Jun-Ho agreed. "But if we do nothing, we are dead anyway." "Not necessarily." A new voice entered the conversation. Yoon Sira, younger sister of engineer Teeman, served as humanity's diplomatic liaison to the fringe species. She had been building relationships for 12 years, creating networks of trust and friendship across the non-Council galaxy. "I have information the Council does not want anyone to know." She activated a holographic display. Documents appeared, some in alien languages, others translated to Korean. Over the past 10,000 years, the Council has quarantined 6 species that showed too much potential. 3 of those species no longer exist. They were not destroyed by war or natural disaster. They simply vanished from the galaxy, and the Council claimed they died out from their own failures. "The Council has done this before," Choi breathed. "They have committed genocide. Multiple times. And the other species let it happen," Sira continued. "Either they did not know, or they chose not to interfere. But I have been speaking with the Drexians, a species conquered by the Council 300 years ago and used as laborers. They remember what their world was like before the Council came. They remember being free, and they are tired of slavery. What are you suggesting?" Jun-Ho asked. Sira smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "That we are not the only ones with reasons to hate the Council. If we are going down, we might as well take their entire corrupt system with us." Engineer Yoon Teeman presented his latest creation to the War Council. It looked like a normal quantum displacement drive, but it was much larger and far more complex. "I call it the Beacon," he explained. "It is a communications device that uses quantum entanglement to transmit information instantaneously across any distance. The Council uses courier ships and hyperlane relays for communications, which can take days or weeks. We can coordinate our forces in real time." "How many can you build in 8 months?" President Choi asked. "If every manufacturing facility on Earth, Luna, and Mars focuses on this, maybe 500 units. Enough to equip our entire fleet and share with our allies." "Do it," Choi ordered. "And prepare our people. We are going to war." The Council's spy networks on Earth were extensive, but they failed to detect the full scale of humanity's mobilization. They saw shipyards working overtime. They noted increased military communications. They assumed humans were simply continuing their defiant expansion, testing the boundaries of their cage. They did not realize that Earth was preparing for survival. Tokvin, the Korathi merchant, received a message from Dr. Park Minji that made his fur stand on end. "The Council plans to destroy humanity. We have 8 months. We are asking our friends for help." The old Korathi thought for a long moment and activated his own communications network. Within days, every Korathi trading post in the galaxy knew the truth. They began quietly sharing information with other non-Council species. The Drexians heard. The scattered warrior clans heard. The remote colonies heard, and they made their choices. Captain Lee Hyan, now Fleet Commander Lee Hyan, stood on the bridge of the carrier Indomitable. Around him floated 200 human warships, the entire combat strength of Earth's military. It was a tiny force compared to the Council's thousands of vessels, but quantity was not everything. "All ships report ready," his executive officer announced. "Quantum displacement drives charged. Beacon network active. All weapons systems operational." Hyan took a deep breath. In a few hours, they would either break through the Council's quarantine line or die trying. There was no middle ground anymore. Transmission from President Choi, the communications officer reported. Choi's face appeared on the screen. Fleet Commander Hyan, you are about to undertake the most important mission in human history. Win or lose, you will show the galaxy that humanity refuses to die quietly. Good luck, and may you return home victorious. Thank you, Madam President, Hyan replied formally. Then he turned to his crew. All ships, prepare for jump. Target coordinates confirmed. We are going to break our chains. The Indomitable and its fleet vanished from Earth, orbit in a flash of twisted space. When they reappeared at the quarantine line, Council defense platforms immediately opened fire. The real war had begun. Admiral Junho watched from Earth as the battle unfolded through the beacon network. Real-time tactical data flowed from every ship in the fleet. He could see what Hyan saw, react to the same information simultaneously. The Council's automated platforms outnumbered human ships 5-1. But they fought using pre-programmed tactics refined over millennia. They expected enemies to behave in predictable ways. Humans were anything but predictable. Small ships darted through defensive fire, launching swarms of missiles that overwhelmed targeting systems. Larger vessels used their quantum drives to make micro-jumps, appearing behind enemy positions and firing at point-blank range before jumping away. It was chaotic, dangerous, and completely outside Council military doctrine. The quarantine line shattered. Human vessels poured through into open space and across the galaxy. Other species watched and wondered if perhaps the Council was not as invincible as everyone believed. The Battle of the Quarantine line lasted 17 hours and became the stuff of legend. Fleet Commander Li Hyan watched his tactical display as human ships danced through Council defenses like they were performing some chaotic ballet. Every captain in the fleet had grown up playing video games, had learned to think in 3 dimensions, had trained their entire lives to react faster than thought. The Council automated platforms were powerful, but they were programmed to fight enemies who followed rules, who fought with honor and predictability. Humans did not care about honor. They cared about survival. Captain Beak Min-Su commanded the carrier Indomitable from the center of the human formation. His ship was larger than most, carrying hundreds of small fighter craft that now swarmed across the battlefield like angry insects. Each fighter was barely big enough for one pilot, armed with missiles and kinetic weapons, moving so fast and erratically that Council targeting systems could not lock onto them. Fighter Wing 7. Target that command platform, Min-Su ordered through the beacon network. Wing 12, screen our left flank. Wing 3, you are cleared for kamikaze runs on those antimatter batteries. The fighter pilots acknowledged without hesitation. They knew some of them would not return. But they also knew that dying here, fighting for humanity's freedom, was better than waiting for the Council to exterminate their families. 3. Council cruisers tried to break through the human center, their massive weapons firing at the Indomitable. Min-Su's ship took hits, armor buckling under the assault, but human engineers had designed their carriers to take punishment. Redundant systems kicked in. Damaged sections sealed themselves off. The Indomitable kept fighting. All ships, quantum jump on my mark, Hyan commanded. 3, 2, 1, mark. The entire human fleet vanished and reappeared 5,000 kilometers to starboard of their previous position. The Council ships that had been firing at them suddenly found themselves shooting at empty space while human vessels poured fire into their flanks. It was not fair. It was not honorable. It was war, and humans were very good at it. After 17 hours of brutal combat, the Council's defensive line collapsed. 200 human ships had become 143. Over 3,000 crew members dead. But the quarantine was broken. All ships proceed to Rally Point Alpha, Hyan ordered, his voice hoarse from hours of constant commands. Damage control teams, assess casualties, and repair status. We are not done yet. Because breaking out was only the first part of the plan, on a mining colony in the Draxus system, 300 light-years from Earth, a Drexian laborer named Hana received a message through secret channels. The message was simple. Now. Hana looked around at her fellow workers, slaves who had been mining rare minerals for the Council for 300 years. She nodded once and activated the explosives that human agents had smuggled onto the colony over the past 6 months. The mine's power core exploded, taking out the colony's communications array and defensive systems. Before Council security could respond, Drexian workers throughout the facility rose up, using improvised weapons and sheer numbers to overwhelm their guards. For freedom, Hana shouted, her voice echoing through the tunnels. For our children, for the future. Across 12 different worlds, similar uprisings began simultaneously. The Drexians, inspired by humanity's defiance and equipped with weapons, and intelligence provided by human agents, struck at the heart of the Council's mining operations. Thousands of slave workers broke their chains in a single coordinated moment. Dr. Park. Minji stood in a secure communications center on Luna, coordinating the rebellion through the beacon network. Messages poured in from across the galaxy. The Drexians were in open revolt. The Korathi had blockaded 3 major Council trade routes. A dozen smaller species were declaring independence. The Council is receiving reports of chaos across 40 systems, her intelligence officer reported. Their response fleets are scrambling, but they do not have enough ships to suppress all the uprisings simultaneously. Good, Minji replied. Keep them off balance. The more they have to worry about, the less they can focus on Earth. But the Council was not helpless. Security Director Malther watched the reports flooding into his command center with cold fury. He had warned the Council years ago that humanity was dangerous. Now his predictions were coming true. Deploy the reserve fleets, he ordered. Crush these rebellions. And recall the Arcturus Task Force. We launch Project Cleansing immediately. His aide hesitated. Director, the planet killers are not fully tested. And if we deploy them now, the entire galaxy will know we have been building weapons of genocide. The entire galaxy is already in rebellion, Malther snarled. We finish this now, before it spreads further. Humanity dies, and their allies will see what happens to those who defy the Council. 1,000 Council warships, the largest fleet ever assembled, began moving toward the Sol system. Fleet Commander Hyan received the warning from long-range scouts. Contacts inbound. Council Task Force estimated at over 1,000 vessels. Time to Sol system, 48 hours at current speed. He had 143 damaged ships, most running on backup power, many with wounded crew. Against 1,000 Council vessels, it was suicide. Send a message to President Choi, Hyan ordered. Tell her we will hold them as long as we can. But he knew it would not be long enough. Admiral Juno stood in the command center on Earth, watching the tactical display with growing dread. The Council fleet was unstoppable. Even if every ship in the human fleet fought to the death, they could maybe delay the enemy by a few hours. Then a new contact appeared on the display. Then another, and dozens more. Admiral, we are receiving beacon signals from unknown vessels. The communications officer reported, confusion evident in her voice. They are using our quantum network. They are sending identification codes. Who? Junho demanded. The answer came as the unknown ships dropped out of quantum displacement at the edge of the Sol system. Korathi trading vessels. Their cargo holds filled with weapons. Drexian rebel ships, crude and improvised, but numerous. Warships from a dozen species that the Council had oppressed, ignored, or insulted over the millennia. Elder Korathi merchant Tokven's face appeared on Junho's screen. Admiral Juno, the Korathi merchant fleet has arrived. We heard humanity was throwing a party, and we brought friends. More ships kept appearing. Humanity's allies, species from across the galaxy, who had decided that the Council's reign had lasted long enough. By the time the Count stabilized, the Allied fleet numbered 800 vessels. They came, Jon-Ho whispered. They actually came. The Battle of the Kelvin Nebula would be studied by military strategists for generations. The Council fleet of 1,000 ships faced an allied force of 800, but those 800 ships were linked by humanity's beacon network, coordinating their movements with perfect precision. Fleet Commander Hyan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now serving as flagship for the entire Allied fleet. Around him were liaison officers from 20 different species, all connected through the beacon, all sharing real-time tactical information. Council fleet entering weapons range, the tactical officer reported. They are maintaining formation Omega-7. Standard Council battle doctrine. Hyan smiled. Standard doctrine meant predictable, and predictable meant vulnerable. All Allied forces activate planned chaos. Human ships target their command vessels. Korathi fleet hit their supply lines. Drexian forces engage their flanks. Everyone else, pick your targets and make them count. The Allied fleet scattered in a dozen different directions, each group executing its assigned mission with perfect coordination. The Council fleet tried to maintain formation, but they were fighting 20 different battles simultaneously, each one requiring different tactics. Captain Beek Min-Su launched his fighters in wave after wave, targeting the Council's capital ships. The fighters were expendable. The pilots were not, and human designers had equipped every fighter with an ejection system and rescue beacon. Lost pilots would be recovered later. For now, they focused on creating maximum chaos. A Drexian cruiser, built from salvaged mining equipment and human weapons, rammed a Council destroyer at full speed. The Drexian ship was destroyed, but so was its target, and the explosion took out 2 more Council vessels that had been flying too close. Korathi merchants, who had spent centuries learning every trade route in the galaxy, used their knowledge to anticipate Council movements. They appeared from quantum jumps at impossible angles, striking at vulnerable ships before disappearing back into displacement. The Council fleet had superior technology and greater numbers, but they were fighting an enemy that did not follow. Rules did not maintain formations and did not care about traditional military honor. After 6 hours of brutal combat, Security Director Malther realized he was losing. His fleet had been reduced to 700 ships. The Allied forces had lost fewer than 300. The mathematics were against him. All vessels withdraw to defensive positions, he ordered bitterly. We regroup and develop new tactics. But Fleet Commander Hyan was not about to let them retreat and reorganize. All ships pursue, he commanded. Do not give them time to think. Keep them off balance. Keep them running. The Allied fleet chased. The Council forces across 3 star systems, harrying them constantly, allowing them no rest, no time to repair or rearm. Finally, at the edge of Council territory, the enemy fleet scattered, individual ships fleeing in different directions. The Battle of the Kelvin Nebula was over. The Council had lost. The Council homeworld of Taloria had stood as the center of galactic civilization for 10,000 years. Its towers reached toward the sky, monuments to ancient wisdom and enduring peace. Its people had never known war, never faced true danger, never questioned their place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. Now they watched in fear as Fleet Commander Li Hyan's Allied Armada appeared in orbit. The human fleet had grown since the Battle of the Kelvin Nebula. More species joined every day, bringing their ships and their grievances against the Council. The fleet now numbered over 1,500 vessels, representing 37 different civilizations that had chosen freedom over submission. But the fleet did not attack. Instead, a single message broadcast across all frequencies. This is Fleet Commander Lee Hyan of Earth, speaking on behalf of the Free Species Alliance. We request immediate negotiations with the Galactic Council leadership. We do not seek destruction. We seek justice. On the surface of Taloria, Arbiter Velmara sat in an emergency session with what remained of the Council. Many species had withdrawn from the Council in recent weeks, either joining the rebellion or declaring neutrality. The once mighty assembly was now a shadow of its former self. They want negotiations, one council member said. Perhaps we can reach a compromise. Security Director Melther slammed his hand on the table. Compromise? They are rebels, criminals, who have violated quarantine and destroyed council property. We should be mobilizing every remaining ship to crush them. With what ships? Another council member asked quietly. Our fleets are scattered. Half our military has defected or refused orders. We cannot win a military victory. Velmara closed her 4 eyes in resignation. 10,000 years of council rule, ending not with glory, but with this humiliation. Contact the humans. We will negotiate. President Choi Era arrived on Taloria 3 days later, accompanied by Dr. Park Minji and representatives from all 37 allied species. The Council had insisted on holding negotiations in their grand chamber, probably hoping the impressive architecture would remind everyone of their former power. It did not work. Choi walked into the chamber with her head high, flanked by Drexian warriors and Karathi merchants. Behind her came representatives of species the Council had conquered, exploited, or dismissed over the millennia. This was not a defeated force begging for terms. This was a new power demanding recognition. Arbiter Velmara looked older than she had 15 years ago when she rejected humanity's petition. Her silver skin had lost its luster. Her 4 eyes showed weariness that came from watching her entire world crumble. President Choi Era of Earth, Velmara began formally. You requested negotiations. State your terms. Choi did not sit. She stood before the Council as an equal, not a supplicant. The Free Species Alliance presents the following. Demands. First, immediate dissolution of all quarantine zones. Every species has the right to explore the galaxy freely. Murmurs ran through the remaining Council members. That was their primary method of control, gone in one sentence. Second, Choi continued, independence for all conquered or enslaved species. The Drexians, the Valmorians, the Kishari, and 14 other species currently under Council dominion will be granted immediate sovereignty over their homeworlds and colonies. More murmurs, louder now. The Council's economic power came from controlling those resources. Third, establishment of a new galactic union, a democratic federation where every species, regardless of age or technology level, has an equal voice. The old Council hierarchy is abolished. Impossible, Malthur stood abruptly. You cannot simply erase 10,000 years of civilization because you won a few battles. Dr. Park Minji stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chamber. We can, and we will. The evidence of Council genocide is now public knowledge. We have broadcast the proof across every communications network in the galaxy. Everyone knows what you did to 3 innocent species. Everyone knows about Project Cleansing and your plan to exterminate humanity. She activated a holographic display showing documents, recordings, and testimony from Council personnel who had defected. The evidence was undeniable. The galaxy has seen your crimes, Minji continued. The question now is whether you face justice peacefully or whether we drag you to it by force. Velmara looked around at her fellow Council members, seeing the defeat in their faces. And if we refuse your terms? Then the Allied fleet removes you from power, and we build the new union without your cooperation, Choi said simply. We would prefer to do this peacefully. We would prefer that your species join the union as equals. But we will not allow the old system to continue. A long silence filled the chamber. 10,000 years of accumulated power and tradition crumbled in that silence. Finally, Velmara spoke. The Galactic Council accepts your terms. We will dissolve our authority and participate in the formation of the Galactic Union. Malthor looked at her in shock. Arbiter, you cannot. It is done, Director, Velmara said quietly. We lost, not because humans were stronger, but because we were wrong. We believed our age granted us wisdom, but we had become arrogant. We forgot that every species deserves freedom and dignity. She turned to Choi. I rejected your petition 15 years ago, President Choi. I called your species dangerous and unpredictable. I was right about one thing. You are dangerous. Dangerous to tyranny, to injustice, to those who would cage others. Perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needed. The formal dissolution of the Galactic Council took 3 months. Representatives from 62 species gathered on a neutral world to draft the founding charter of the Galactic Union. It was a messy, chaotic process. Species argued about voting rights, territorial boundaries, and trade regulations. Nothing like the orderly, top-down governance of the old council. Dr. Park Minji, serving as one of humanity's delegates, found herself mediating between a Drexian warrior clan and a peaceful agricultural species about mining rights. It was exhausting, frustrating, and absolutely necessary. This is democracy, she explained to a young Karathi observer. It is loud, inefficient, and sometimes maddening. But it gives everyone a voice. No one species can dominate the others. The final charter established a representative assembly where each species had equal voting power regardless of their technology level or population. Decisions required majority agreement. Military force could only be deployed with 75% approval. And most importantly, no species could be quarantined, conquered, or destroyed without violating the Union's core principles. President Choi Era spoke at the founding ceremony. Her words broadcast to billions across the galaxy. 15 years ago, humanity was rejected from the old council. We were told we were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too emotional. Today, I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a partner in building something better. The old galaxy was ordered, peaceful, and stagnant. The new galaxy will be chaotic, argumentative, and alive with possibility. She paused, looking around at the representatives of so many different species. We did not fight to rule the galaxy. We fought so that no one could rule it, so that every species could determine its own fate. That is the promise of the Galactic Union. Engineer Yoon Taiman and his sister Sira founded the Prometheus Institute on a station orbiting Earth's moon. It became the galaxy's premier research facility, where scientists from all species worked together freely. Technology that the Council had hoarded for millennia was now available to everyone. A young Drexian student asked Tiemann how humans had advanced so quickly. Your species went from quarantine to defeating the Council in 15 years. How? Tiemann smiled. Because we had to. Necessity drives innovation. When you have no choice but to succeed or die, you find solutions that comfortable people would never consider. The Council was comfortable for 10,000 years. We were desperate. Desperation can be a powerful motivator. The Prometheus Institute developed new medical treatments, faster engines, better food production systems. Within 5 years, species across the galaxy were living longer, traveling farther, and eating better than ever before. The knowledge the Council had controlled was now lifting everyone up. Admiral Kim Junho oversaw the formation of the Union Defense Fleet. It was a voluntary force, with ships and crew from dozens of species. Their mission was not to enforce Council authority, but to protect member worlds from pirates, natural disasters, and other threats. We fight to protect, not to control. Junho told the first graduating class of Union Defense Academy. Any species can leave the Union at any time. We serve those who choose to stay, not because they fear us, but because they want to be part of something larger than themselves. Captain Beek Min-soo commanded the first Union patrol fleet, a mixed force of human, Karathi, and Drexian ships. They stopped a pirate raid on a colony world in their first month, earning gratitude and respect. The Union Defense Fleet quickly gained a reputation for competence and integrity that the old Council forces had never achieved. Fleet Commander Lee Hyen retired from military service at the age of 52. He had spent half his life fighting, first to break the quarantine, then to defeat the Council, then to build the Union. He was tired. Dr. Park Minji retired with him. They returned to Earth, bought a small house in the mountains of Korea, and tried to live quietly. It did not work. Too many people wanted their advice, their wisdom, their stories. So they compromised. They taught at universities, trained young diplomats, and wrote books about humanity's journey from rejection to partnership with the galaxy. They had a daughter and named her Hana, after the Drexian rebel who had helped spark the uprising. 20 years after the Battle of the Kelvin Nebula, Ambassador Kang Do-yeon stood once again in a grand chamber before an assembly of alien species. But this time, it was not the council chamber on Taloria. It was the Union Assembly on the neutral station of Unity, Haven. And this time, Kang was not begging for acceptance. He was representing Earth, as it formally joined the Galactic Union as a founding member. "It is strange," he said in his speech, his voice carrying across the chamber. 20 years ago, I stood before the Council as a rejected supplicant. They told us we were unworthy of joining galactic civilization. They imprisoned us and tried to exterminate us. He paused, looking around at the hundreds of species represented. But their rejection was the greatest gift they could have given us, because it forced us to be true to ourselves. We could not become what they wanted, so we became what we were. And in being ourselves, we showed the galaxy a different path. The assembly erupted in applause, not just from humans, but from dozens of species. President Choi Era, now elderly and serving her final term, watched from the observation gallery with tears in her eyes. Beside her sat Velmara, the former arbiter, who had joined the Union and now served as an advisor on constitutional law. "I was wrong about your species," Velmara said quietly. "The Council's mistake was not seeing what humanity could become. It was trying to prevent it." "No," Choi replied gently. "Your mistake was believing that age meant wisdom, and that order was more important than freedom. But you learned. That is what matters." The ceremony concluded with the activation of humanity's memorial, a monument in Earth orbit, visible from the surface, bearing the names of everyone who had died in the struggle for freedom. 3,000 names from the Battle of the Quarantine Line, 60,000 from the colony, ships destroyed early in the quarantine, thousands more from the uprisings and battles that followed. Fleet Commander Lee Hyen stood before the memorial with his wife Minji and their daughter Hana, now 15 years old. "Did you really do all those things?" Hana asked. "The battles, the speeches, the revolution?" "We did what we had to do," Hyen replied. "We could have accepted the Council's cage. We could have lived our lives within their boundaries, safe and small. But that was not living. That was just existing." He put his hand on the memorial, feeling the names etched in metal. "These people died so that you could grow up free, so that you could reach for the stars without asking permission. Remember them. Honor them.